Rise, renew, reconnect. Welcome to From the Ashes, a podcast where every episode ignites hope and healing. I'm your host, Valerie Huang Beck, and I'm on a mission to help you embrace your unique potential and become the vibrant visionary you knew you were meant to be.
And the fire in the darkest night, the phoenix burns. It's ready for flight. Shadows may come, try to tear you apart, but you're the flame that ignites.
All right, everyone, welcome back to From the Ashes. I'm your host, Valerie Beck, and today I have a very special guest, my friend Mark Richard, who also comes from California. And I actually met Mark in Japan on the Nomad Escape retreat, and he has a remarkable healing journey to share with us. And I'm really excited because Mark got cancer, stage 4 cancer, if I'm not mistaken, and he was able to beat it naturally by himself in 2018. So first of all, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Awesome. So I know that you're a hard worker. I've heard your backstory too of how you grew up in LA, and it hasn't been an easy journey. And so you're a real survivor in many respects, but also you've learned how being a really hard worker can kind of backlash. So let's start from when you found out that you were sick, and what was the journey that led you up to that point?
Yeah. Well, I noticed that I was getting sick in 2016. Found a lump on my neck behind my left ear. But at that time, I was a top producing real estate agent, super driven. And, I think my childhood led me to that, the super driven because I came from such a rough childhood. I mean, I was poor in the slums in Los Angeles and it was really, really hard. It was a very, very rough childhood, and I never wanted to raise my children like that. So as I grew up and got older, I did the things that I needed to do to make sure I wasn't in that environment. And also, I mean, there's, the parents dynamics too about, okay, you get, commendations and told you're a good kid when you do stuff and you get good grades and you do all that kind of stuff. And my parents weren't real. My dad was very loving, but my mom wasn't. And I noticed that when I got good grades and did things well, it was like that's where it showed up. You started saying, "Hey, good job," and if you didn't get good grades, it was like you didn't get that. So I think that's where it came from, plus just being super poor. I mean, there was no food in the house, so bad. I was eating dried cat food, Friskies, that kind of poor. I mean, it was super poverty,
Mm.
a lot of crime out there. And I just didn't, my childhood was one of survival. It made me tough. Also, a lot of bullying made me compassionate for people that are in those kinds of circumstances. So as I got older, I didn't want to raise my children in that. And I was a pretty smart kid. I was a very sensitive kid too. I was that little skinny kid that was like just loved everybody, and I didn't know why people would bully me or push me around. I was robbed at knife point when I was 10 years old inside the bathroom at my elementary school. I mean, that's how bad it was, but I definitely didn't want to raise my children in that environment. And as I got older, I did the things that I needed to do I always took the hard classes. I think that's why I went in and studied physics and mathematics, because you tell people you're studying physics and they're like, "Whoa, physics, really? Mathematics? Why would you do that?" But also I had a natural love for learning. I was super curious as a kid. So, and I really did love physics and mathematics. I remember buying an algebra book, a used algebra book at the thrift store when I was about 12 years old, 10, 11 years old maybe, when I was skipping home, literally giddy, with this huge algebra book skipping home because I just had a natural curiosity for learning, and I loved mathematics, loved physics. I loved to know how things worked, and started trading stocks when I was 12 years old, built my first radio when I was 8, so I was a pretty smart kid. My father died when I was 14 years old, and my mom started dating other men, and I just moved out of the house. I couldn't deal with my mom dating other men, so I moved into a friend's house at 15 or 16 years old. I managed to finish high school. My siblings didn't. But then, started studying physics and mathematics. My grades were horrible because I had such a dysfunctional, messed up childhood. But, I got it together. I started getting really good grades in junior college and then started studying physics and mathematics, ended up at Berkeley, met my wife. I was studying elementary particle physics, quantum mechanics, nuclear physics. So, and I loved it. That was my thing. I wanted to teach university physics. I just loved to know how things worked. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think it really plays into, like, when I got sick, I took all of that curiosity and energy and I got, "Okay, I need to figure out how to survive." How are people surviving naturally? Anyway, yeah, so I went to Berkeley and met my wife before I could finish my degree and, had to get out, and because I was a double major in physics, I couldn't do it. 3 hours of sleep a night. And Berkeley's super competitive. It's just a phenomenal university for I had 2 Nobel Prize winners as my teachers in physics. I jumped into real estate, did really well in that, became a top producing real estate agent in San Francisco, but I still had that super drive of drive, 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 drive. And my mind was much more tough than my body. It was just like, don't be weak. You hurt, you're tired, you got headaches, you've got indigestion, you're exhausted, just keep going. My mind was like way stronger than my body was. And in 2016, 2015, really, towards the end of 2015, I started noticing a lump behind my left ear. And I didn't pay any attention to it because I wasn't listening to my body anyway, which is super important now. I mean, I realized that, so many things. I was tired, which I thought was just because I was working so hard, 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Making a lot of money. I mean, top 3 out of 6,000 agents, I was way up there, but I had no life, I was eating all the wrong foods. I was eating fast food. McDonald's and Burger King were the norm, burrito trucks, coffee, Coca-Cola, you know, everything was wrong. I had really bad heartburn. I was living on Rolaids and, sleeping badly. My relationships with my wife and my kids wasn't good. And other people too, I just didn't have time for life, but then I got this lump behind my left ear. I went to the doctor and I said well, it didn't go right away, 3 months, 4 months into it. That's how bad it was. "Ah, it'll go away." But it didn't, so then I went into the doctor and I said, "Hey, what is this?" And they go, "Oh, it's probably nothing, maybe an allergic reaction to something, it'll go away, don't worry about it." That's all I needed was a doctor to say, "Yeah, you're good," and I went back
Mm,
got back on that bullet train of working so hard and 6 months later, started getting lumps on my neck and across my chest, started developing severe, severe night sweats. Like, twice a night, I'd change the sheets. There was so much water coming off of my body. It was really bad. I mean, I would change the sheets twice, pull them off. I had sheets right next to my bed. I'd pull them off, throw them in the corner in the hamper, and get back in, change it again 2 or 3 hours later. Lost I went from 210 pounds all the way down to 166 pounds. So I lost 45 pounds or something in 3 or 4 months. So I was in trouble. And, I was going to the doctors and they were trying to figure it out. They did all these kind of tests on AIDS and Lyme's disease and a bunch of other things that had similar symptoms like that. But my doctor pretty much knew what was going on, and I pretty much knew what was going on. Uh, asked him, I said, "Okay, so what are the next steps?" And I said, "What do you think I have?" And he said, "You have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, advanced stages of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma." And I said, "Well, what's the next steps if?" Because I refused the biopsy. He wanted to go in and get a biopsy, and I knew that if I did the biopsy, there was a risk of spreading it, and at least that's what I read at the time. And I told him, "If I do that and you confirm it," and I said, "What are the odds that I have that?" And he said, "Very high probability, 90% probability, 85% probability. There's almost nothing else. With those symptoms that you have, you're there, the lumps." I had a tumor in my armpit that caused neuropathy down my arm here. It was pretty bad. And then the doctor said, "You will go into chemoradiation, probably surgery, remove lymph nodes and do all that." And I said, "Well, I know I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go down that path." And I had been reading books at that point, getting online, starting to do deep dive medical research articles, PubMed research articles. I read a lot of books. In 6 months, I probably read 40 books. You read the first 15 or 20, and then you start seeing the same information over and over again. You skim through it to
Yeah.
find the gold, something new. And I noticed a pattern that people were doing that were surviving naturally. I read books on natural cures for cancer, natural modalities for healing, and it was changing your diet, it was lowering your stress levels. And I noticed a pattern in the supplements that they were taking. I kept seeing the same supplements come up, so I built a spreadsheet on paper, and on the left side was all the different kinds of cancers, and on the top was across the top was the modalities. What were they doing? And they were juicing vegetables. What kind of vegetables? They were taking supplements. Which ones? They were doing red light therapies, vitamin C injections, hyperbaric chambers, and all kinds of different things. But I noticed the people that were surviving cancer with natural means were doing it was groupings of what they were doing. They were juicing vegetables, not so much fruits, mostly vegetables. They were reducing stress, which was gigantic. Stress was a big one. They were changing their lifestyles and taking supplements. There was 21 supplements that I kept seeing come up. So I did that, wrote down all of this stuff and told my doctor I'm closing my office in the San Francisco Bay Area and I'm making over $1 million a year, 1.2 million a year in personal closed commissions. I mean, it was a lot. And I literally turned the lights out and just said, "Hey guys, I'm leaving. I'm going to go move up to the mountains." So I moved from there up to the Northern California mountains. I live in the redwoods and overlooking a river, peace and quiet. I had never meditated before in my life. My diet was horrible, so I had radical changes I was making, huge changes. And I moved into a little two-bedroom house with a deck that overlooks a river and the redwood trees, started meditating. I told my doctor, I said, "Hey, I'm moving to the mountains and I'm going to meditate and juice vegetables." And he actually got angry at me and said, "You're wasting time. You're going to come back sicker." And he actually said, "Or dead. And we need to get on this right now. You're wasting valuable time." I said, "Give me 4 months. It's not going to kill me in 4 months." And I was pretty confident that I had found a path. It was very hard to choose the path because people that I loved were like, "Hey, you're crazy going down juicing vegetables and meditating." And other ones were like, "Hey, trust your instinct, trust your heart." I mean, people that I loved and loved me were telling me that. So I finally decided to just go ahead and do it and make my own decision, which was very, very hard. And 4 months later, I my type 2 diabetes had gone away and my cholesterol levels were better. And I noticed that the lumps were getting smaller. The first thing I noticed after about 2 or 3 months is I wasn't getting more because I was getting lumps more and more and more and bigger and more painful all over my chest and upper neck area, and I noticed that they weren't getting bigger and the numbers of them weren't increasing. That's the first thing I noticed, and then they started shrinking and getting smaller, and I thought, "Wow, I'm onto something. This is working." So when I went into my doctor, he said and got scanned at 4 months, he said, Your lumps are so small now that we can't even biopsy 'em. Keep doing what you're doing." And I said, "I'm juicing vegetables." And he said, "Lettuce doesn't kill cancer." And I was like, "Dude, you know, something's working for me, and I'm gonna stay on this path." And for me, it was, like, revolutionary. I mean, because I was always physics and mathematics, everything's gotta be real, bring out the big guns, let's do the chemo and radiation surgery, let's really get together, bring in the Marines on this thing. But, juicing vegetables doesn't seem that's not the Marines, it's more of a natural, kind of holistic way to do it, and I was really impressed with how remarkably well it worked. I wasn't cured in 4 months, it took longer, it took, 12 months, 18 months before I was 100% good, but then I went into my doctor, another doctor, 9 months into this, and she said, "You have the blood of a 25-year-old man." And I was like, "Wow." My mustache actually it's gray now, but my mustache actually got darker, and then now it's going back to gray again, but I was like, "Wow, nutrition is super powerful," and it was just really a phenomenal change for me, and a revelation that, hey, this is what I wanna do. This is where I wanna help people heal. Because it was when I got sick, I was terrified. I thought my whole existence was gonna be erased, and I thought, "Wow, I blew it." I worked for 35 years nonstop, just blowing doors out, and I'll travel later, I'll spend time with people, I'll spend, birthdays later, all of it, anniversaries later. And I passed all of that stuff. I just went straight by it like I was on a bullet train.
Mhm.
And, I was 56 when I got sick, and I thought, "Wow, where's the rewind button? How do I go back and fix what I just did?" And there is no rewind button. That's why it's really rewarding to talk to people that are younger now and tell them, because they say, "Oh, I wanna make $100,000,000." I go, "Really? At what cost?"
Ah, I love that.
You
Yes,
know, but yeah, so, I mean, that's kinda like the quick rundown.
I love it. Okay, there's so much that I do wanna say to really enhance just what you said and to bring it to a light where a lot we can understand, like, what was going on because, as you know, I study Ayurvedic medicine. And Ayurvedic medicine has a strong philosophical background, actually. So it's not so much about there is logic, very, very strong logic to it, but all of this logic actually has a foundation philosophy. And when you told your story about how you got sick, right? You were saying how you were doing all the wrong things, like taking all of the wrong foods, and you were just going 100 million miles an hour, and you were not paying attention to what was happening to your body. And in Ayurveda, we have actually what we call like the three main causes of disease. The first one is failure of the intellect or your inner knowing, which is basically your ability to connect with your innate intelligence, like your bodily intelligence that tells you what's good for your body. The second is the misuse of the senses. So, using our senses to feed us junk food or to feed us whatever it is that we are using to cope or just get by, right? So, like the Coca-Cola and the McDonald's and all that is coping food. It's not thriving food. And it's like misusing our senses to be like, okay, we just got to keep going. We're on this train. And then the third one is what we call the effects of time and motion, but I think a better way to translate that is the motions of the mind and how that induces stress. So all of those things you kind of recounted in your story, and the thing is, like, we can't blame ourselves for doing this because, like, look at where we come from, right? We were just trying to survive. And so it's a matter not of being like, "Oh, I had, a terrible childhood, and so I had to do these things," but then just acknowledging, like, that's what allowed me to get to this point, but it allowed me to get to this point with a cost, which is what you just alluded to, is like, how much if you wanna make 100 something $1,000,000, at what cost?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so true, and, I mean, everything I learned in the first couple years of studying it was focused mostly on nutrition, but really it's a lot more than that. Like you said, it's paying attention to your body, listening to your body and the mindset and the lifestyle and the other things that go on with it. I was talking to a young guy in Mind Valley, and he's 26, and he said he wanted to make 100,000,000 to $200,000,000. And I said, "Hey, I'm gonna be honest with you, there's 3 things that came to my mind. And first off, why do you need that much money? Because you don't need that much money to be happy,
Mhm,
And actually that much money might make you unhappy, and it might kill you. So I just said, like, "Why do you need that much money? Is it your ego that's talking?" And he smiled and he said, because I said, "I know young men, 26 years old, they wanna go, they wanna buy Ferraris and do all that kinda stuff, and they want that ego." And I said, "Nah, you don't need that, you know? You
mhm.
don't need all of that stuff. There's lots of people that don't have that much money and are very happy and have a much more rounded life, and at what cost? What are you willing to pay for that?" So, I mean, it is at what cost, you know? And now I live in the mountains, I'm way happier. I have a lot more friends that I love and that love me. It's, like, way better. A lot better. The money, people focus on the wrong thing, so, um
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. I guess I have a follow-up question to that because you still surround yourself with a lot of young people that are entrepreneurs. What do you see? Because I honestly do see there are a lot of these patterns in my peers. They're still going for the lots of money and the lots of fame. And I realize like I really can't follow that life. It's not one that's sustainable. And I already know that having studied Ayurveda, but I can't it's like I can't tell people what to do, but I do see this pattern. So what kind of patterns do you see? Because you're
It's the
surrounded by
same,
enough of
yep.
this.
A lot of people focused on the wrong thing, on money, success, ego, when they should be focusing on a more balanced lifestyle. You know, for me, all of the I came up with really I looked at it and over the years it's 7 modalities to healing, and it's more balanced life. It's one's nutrition, but then the other one's also a mindset, lifestyle, connection with people is huge, connection to community. Those there's the science behind it too. Everything that I studied is evidence-based because I have that kind of nerdy physics, mathematics, still knock on wood reality. And somebody would say, why eat broccoli? And I'd say, well, why? And, it's because it's got sulforaphane and it causes apoptosis, which kills the cancer cells. All of it's there's science behind it. ECGC, why is it good? Because it's got in green teas, matcha is phenomenal. ECGC, by the way, is absolutely remarkable on so many levels. It takes away, dissolves the fibroids, anti-cancer, anti-tumor effects, all kinds of stuff. But there's a reason why the balance in life is so important, a balance in nutrition, but also a balance in life. And money isn't it. If you're driving, 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 I think the end result is people want this money because if you keep asking them and you go down that rabbit hole, why do you want to make $100 million? Because people are going to respect me. They're going to look at me. Why is it important that people respect you? Well, I'm going to feel good. It makes me happy. The end result is feeling good and be happy. And you can do that without making $100 million, $200 million. You don't need to focus on that. You can do that with a lot less money
Mm.
and good people, good friends, people, experiences in life and slowing down. And whenever I talk to people that are on that bullet train, I always tell them, so let's have a conversation because I was on that bullet train and the bridge is out ahead. All right. And we could slow down and correct before you get there. And I know how to talk to those people because I was that guy. You know, number 3 out of 6,000 real estate agents, you don't get there. And San Francisco's real estate's super competitive, and San Francisco Bay Area is a super competitive market. So I know those guys. I know C-level guys. I know top performers. I know how their brains work. And if somebody had come up to me back then and said, "Yeah, you need to start eating right and you need to meditate," I'd have gone, "Dude, you have no idea. I'm not going to do that."
Yeah.
But now I know what happens, and I hit that wall at a million miles an hour, and I had to pick up the pieces in my life. It was terrifying, and I can talk to them, you know? I know how to talk to them, and younger people too, they're not on that bullet train yet, but they wanna get on that bullet train, and I go, "Well, be careful getting a ticket on that bullet train because I know where a lot of times it ends up." Burnout's huge in our society right now because people are focusing on the wrong things,
Yeah.
and to me, if I can reach them in their 20s and 30s, before they turn 56 and get, advanced stages of cancer, and you gotta pick it up because it's terrifying. You don't know if you're gonna make it when you get to that point. And, yeah, it's really rewarding talking to the younger people. I like it. I like it because there is no rewind button. That's my rewind button for me,
Yeah.
and that's what it was. Like a little child, I literally thought that was a rewind. How do I go back? How do I go back to being 30s and do it different? You can't, but my rewind button or form of it is talking to my children who are all in their 30s
Yeah.
and other people that are in their 20s and 30s, like that young man that sat down with me at lunch up there and said he wants to make 100 to 200 million. I went, okay, let's have a conversation. You know?
Yeah. Well, okay. I know that so many people listening to this are going to want to know what exactly you did, but I actually want to rewind a little bit more before we go into that conversation because honestly, the method is very simple. I know that already. And once you implement it, it's there, but that's not why it's hard. So, but let's get more present to the cost, right? Because it wasn't just your health. You were 56 when you got sick, right?
Yeah.
So that means that you were living an entire adult life essentially with driving yourself to the ground. Like, I want to know, like, in your perspective, what did you miss out on?
I mean, you can pretty much say everything. I missed out on life. So I missed out on, yeah, that's a hard one because you miss out on everything, when you look at it, you miss out on all the important things. You miss out on being there with your children. I had 4 little kids. I had 4 little kids. I'd wake up and get up early in the morning, go to work before they got up. So I wouldn't see them that whole day, and I'd come back, and they'd already be asleep again. Yeah, all the signs were there. I mean, you just gotta listen to your life, listen to your body, you know, because I miss my kids. I didn't get to experience that. You don't get to go back. You got to get it right the first time, you know. Told myself I wasn't going to get emotional, but when you go back to it, you miss a lot. I mean, everything sounds like, well, everything what? Yeah, everything. I mean, time with my wife, experiences with my wife, good experience with my wife, because I wasn't pleasant to be around. My nature is to be a nice guy. I'm a sensitive guy. I'm a loving guy. I'm caring. I'm compassionate. But when you get on that bullet train, you're so stressed, you don't have time. You don't feel like you have time for just a normal conversation with your kids. You don't go fishing with your children. Another man taught my daughter to ride a bicycle. And I remember sitting there and my wife said, "Hey, so and so taught Emily how to ride a bicycle today." I went, "Wow, I missed that." And there's so many of those things you look back and you'll regret later. So it's just your life. I didn't get to go traveling, do all the things. I kept saying, "Well, I'll go traveling later." I had the money. I had lots of money back then. I could have stopped, I could have slowed down, but I didn't. And you miss all the experiences, birthdays. I just blew right through them. I blew through mine. I blew through my kids. I blew through my wife's anniversaries. My poor wife put up with me. She was like, it was like I was on that bullet train. I just went completely through it. All life, you miss life. Really, you think about all of the stuff because all you're doing is working in super stressful environments. You're not feeling good. I had migraine headaches that were unreal. I mean, I'd get a migraine headache that would last 2 or 3 days, and then I'd go away for 2 or 3 days and then back again. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 migraine headaches, super severe migraine headaches. I lived on Motrin, Tylenol, aspirin, whatever I could do to take to kill those migraine headaches. Acid reflux. I mean, everything was there, and my mind was just like, "Go, go, 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 go. Take some whatever you need to keep going." It was really bad. I mean, it was really, 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 really bad. And I know, people that are listening to this, they know what I'm talking about because if you are listening to this, pay attention to it right now. Don't wait because you're already probably passing up those times in your life that you could be experiencing really beautiful moments with people, and that's what you miss.
Yeah. It's like one of those things that it's really sobering, and I have to constantly remind myself too, like, don't get lost in the sauce because I'm trying to be or trying to make it in a certain way, and it's like I am in the prime of my life, right? But that's the thing is, so I wanna ask a piece of advice as someone who's a millennial, and a lot of my generation are really struggling, and we're afraid of being broke and poor for the rest of our lives. And, you know, my question to you is like, what would you tell us? And then also, like, if you were to go back in time, do you think you could have done it differently?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my generation, I think it's easier. I think millennials have it harder now because of the way the economy is and everything else. I mean, I wish I had a good suggestion of what to do about how to have enough money to do what you need to do. But one thing is you don't need as much money probably as you think you do to live a good life, because the most important thing I got into traveling to other countries that are super poor, and these kids are running around and they're happy and they're smiling, and even the adults are. They don't have a lot of money. I think figure out how much money you need to get the basics. You need to have food, you need to have housing, you need to be able to travel, you need to be able to go do some things, but you don't need oceans of money. That time spent with people is much, much more important. But in my generation, it was easier. I mean, I look at the numbers of what I was making even at 19 years old. I was making $7.25 an hour working at Thrifties. It's like Long's Drugs back then, but I had 2 weeks paid vacation. I had, sick leave. It was like and a house back then cost maybe $70,000. So if you think $7 an hour, $70,000 house, people that are making $20 should be able to buy a house for 200,000. You can't buy a house for 200,000. It's 4, 500, 600,000. So inflation's moved farther away from it. To answer that question about how to do it, I'm not sure, but I know that generally thinking about being happy at a lower, amount of money, trying to spend more time connecting with people, and definitely eating healthy. There's so many reasons. I mean, I know you know because of what your studies, and I know plants, and I'll just say this real quick, but our bodies know how to heal. They know how to heal. Hundreds of thousands of years, our bodies know how to heal. The problem is right now we're under unbelievable amounts of stress, bad food, bad air, bad water, toxins everywhere, and our bodies they don't know how to deal with it. But when you're eating plant plant-based foods and healthy foods and you're meditating and meditation lowers your cortisol levels, lowers your adrenaline levels, and it's a really super powerful technique. Breath work, visioning, all that stuff lowers those levels and brings your immune system back into alignment more. Plants have natural plant compounds in them, polyphenols, bioflavonoids, all of the other stuff, all the goodies that are in there that our bodies have grown up with for hundreds of thousands of years and need. If you give the body that, they will heal. It knows how to heal, and it also changes the way your genes express themselves, even in the plant foods, so that you've got these anti-tumor genes there's anti-tumor compounds, proteins that have come out there and actually fight the tumors. If you've squashed all that stuff with stress and bad food, your body doesn't know how to react to it. And then the epigenetics part of it too with environments. If you're in a stressful job, bad relationships, and just, depressed, anxiety, stress, your epigenetic switches are telling your genes, it's like a recipe book, it's telling it to express itself in a bad way. So you wanna do the good stuff. Meditate, think gratitude. What are you grateful for in your life? Envisioning where you wanna be and happiness and just peace and calm. I think I told you once that 10-day Joe Dispenza event I did, meditated for 50 hours. I've never meditated for 50 hours. That was a real cool experience. I mean, your central nervous system completely resets at the end of that. You just feel calm,
Yeah.
like super calm, you know? But I would change a lot of things. I would focus less on money. If I could go back, focus less on money. I would definitely spend more time with my children. They grow up so fast. My son just turned 35 years old 2 days ago. I'm like, "Wow, I got a 35-year-old son." And it really does, don't blink because it goes fast.
Yeah.
Really, for me, connection with human beings, connection with my family, people I love, that would be the most important thing. You could go traveling around the world, but really it's who are you traveling with, who are you spending time with? That's what I would do. Slow down and really be present right now and every moment with the people that you're with.
Yeah. It is so important. And you touched on so many different aspects of healing. And this is why I think doctors can't pinpoint it because it's not just one thing. And Ayurvedic medicine knows this. And they know that changing diet and lifestyle is hard, right? They know that taking herbal medicine is hard. None of that stuff is easy. Medicines are bitter and all this stuff. And then, like, you have your routine that you don't want to give up and all of that. Which is why in Ayurvedic medicine, they have people stay over at the hospital to do the diet, lifestyle, meditation, all of it together for a long period of time under watch. It's like you're not going to stray, right? Because most people won't think to or it will be very hard for somebody to discipline themselves enough to do it, but what you did was essentially the same thing. You're like, "I'm just gonna stop everything else, move to the mountains, do the meditation, the food, the diet, the everything," because it's not just one thing, it's everything and being able to hold a container for yourself to heal. And once your body realigns itself and, like, finds its own peace, then the homeostasis will do its work.
Yeah, exactly, and it all works together too. I mean, the meditation is a good one to jump out. I use the meditation because I could jump out of that depression like, "Oh, poor me, I'm dying, I'm sick," because that's really hard. You wake up and the first thing when you're sick, when you got something like that, for me anyway, first the waking thought even before you even awake is, "Oh, yeah, I'm dying." I mean, and your body it's just like a giant sucking sound, just goes, "Whoa." Everything comes out of you. Sadness is just overwhelming. And then you're talking with somebody at breakfast or something, and then, "Oh, yeah, I'm dying." That thought kept coming back over and over and over again. So, if I could go meditate and think about the things I'm grateful for, that my wife was helping me or she was taking care of me or that somebody smiled at me or my kids were there. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do. think about grateful. And when I would be in that meditative state, I jumped out of that depression, I jumped out of that anxiety, and I was in a place of gratitude, and that's super powerful for the epigenetic side of it. I mean, you talk about the environment and the feelings affecting the epigenetics, the switches. The DNAs are like a recipe book, and the epigenetics are the ones that says, "Okay, activate this recipe and create these proteins that fight cancer." There's a science to it. You ever check it out, it's absolutely remarkable, and you make all of this stuff happen. It is the whole picture. It's the lifestyle change, decreasing the cortisol levels, the adrenaline levels by doing breath work and meditation, and then the nutrition, getting rid of the bad food. Sugar, by the way, I mean, everybody's heard this. Sugar is super, super, super bad
Mhm.
on so many levels. It's jet fuel for cancer, literally jet fuel for cancer. I'm in the process of making that 7 modalities of healing course that I'm hoping to get done here in the next 90 days. And in that course, I'm gonna actually have a little jet fighter, not a jet fighter where it's breaking the air barrier and all that vapor's coming off of it. This is your cancer on sugar. And I want people to remember that image. This is your cancer on sugar as a jet fighter. And then I'm gonna have this little biplane flying. It's like, this is cancer with no sugar. You know, because I want people to know cancer sugar is super bad on so many levels. Bad for immune system, jet fuel for cancer. It's like a double whammy, but knowing all that stuff and just getting in balance, and it's all of it, like you said, movement, dance, and walking. I know you're a dancer, which is amazing. Yeah, it's so good because dance is good. It's movement, but also the environment that you're in mentally, that super positive state is fantastic for the epigenetic switches. And you put it all together, it's like you've got a really good chance of making it.
Yeah,
I'm not a doctor, but all of the for me, my story, yeah, remarkably well,
yeah.
you know? I used to do these visioning exercises when I was meditating, and all of this stuff was new. I'd never meditated before in my life before 56, never, not once. Meditation was like something weird, something like I didn't know what it was. It was like I couldn't quiet my mind anyway. But I realized you don't have to quiet your mind. You can actually focus your meditation, focus it on gratitude. And I would be visioning myself running down the beach in a healthy 25-year-old body. And I was in pretty good shape in college. I was six pack, good strong arms. I was athletic, looked pretty good, felt good, strong. And I remember thinking 25-year-old body, I'm running down the beach, I could smell the ocean in my mind, I'm feeling the wet sand between my toes and the wind's blowing on me, and then, I'd be sitting there meditating, tears are just streaming down my eyes, and my skin was tingling all over my whole body, I mean, my goosebumps everywhere, all over my neck and back and legs, and I remember thinking 25-year-old body, healthy, no cancer, super good. At 9 months later, after I started all this, I was in a different doctor's office, their GP, doing a blood test, and she said, "Wow, everything looks really good. Your cholesterol levels are good. You're not diabetic, you're not pre-diabetic, you're not even close." And if I didn't know better, I'd say this is the blood of a 25-year-old man. And she actually used those words, 25-year-old man. And during my visioning, I always thought 25. I didn't think 20s, younger man. It was 25-year-old man, 25-year-old man. I can't have the body of a 25. I mean, I can't be 25, but I can have the blood of a 25-year-old man. And
Mhm.
I did. And I thought, "Oh, this is actually pretty amazing, to be able to move the dial that much, just nutrition and visioning and meditation and lifestyle change." So it was remarkably well for me.
Yeah, and it does take the will, you know, and also the acknowledgement of I think part of healing is actually acknowledging where you start. I have a sadder story because I used to run an Ayurvedic clinic, and at the time, I was a beginner practitioner, and I was starting to attract people that, they would use Ayurveda they would come to me as a last-ditch effort, and there was one lady, I think, that w had cancer, and she came to me, but she didn't want to admit to herself. So she had a tumor, and she was like, "Oh, I'll get it checked out," and all of that, and then she actually the second time she came to me, she had gotten the diagnosis, but she didn't even mention it until I asked her, and by that time, I think it was just like, she was still in the mindset like, "Oh, I'll try this and I'll try that." But I think at some point, like, it takes the commitment the commitment to be like, I'm gonna do everything I can to save myself, not like I'm gonna try to save myself.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's ever since I got sick, I told myself I wanna help people heal. And if I made it out, when I made it out. That's another thing too is mindset. In the beginning, I had the victim mindset, "Poor me, poor me, poor me." At some point when I got direction, I read all the books, I felt confident, I knew what I was doing. I knew why drinking green tea was good. I knew why EGCG, why quercetin was good, why vitamin D3 was good. All of these things, I had read the research on it, and I thought, "Okay, I know what I'm doing." And I felt super confident that it was gonna work. And then when it started working, I felt really confident. I mean, I felt like a warrior, like a gladiator, like, "I got this. This is not gonna kill me." And that, I think, even moved the dial even farther. But you're right, mindset is huge. I talked to people, maybe 40, 50, 60 people over the last 6 years that have cancer, and mindsets are all different. I hear 83-year-old people say, "Yeah, you know what? I've lived a good long life. I'm good. I'm cool." And there was this one man, Phil, really great guy. Well, Phil was 83, but also Alan was 83. Both of them said the same thing. And Alan was the one that really, like, impressed me. Super strong handshake, good smile, looked good, strong, everything. Said, "Nope, I'm good, Mark. I'm done." 3 days later, he died.
Mm,
And I was like, "Wow." He decided not to he didn't wanna change his lifestyle, he didn't wanna do anything, he was 83 years old. And same thing with Phil, he said, "I'm not gonna start juicing, I don't wanna do all that stuff." But, I talk to people that are younger, and I had a conversation because I talk to a lot of people now, a lot. People call me all the time, and I just talk to them because that's what I wanna do is help them. I don't charge anything for it, I just help them. I tell them my story. Tell them 'em I'm not a doctor, but I just tell them what I did, and I had this conversation with this woman, she's 44 years old, and she said, "I just want a few more years, like 3." And I thought, "Whoa." I didn't say anything because my first reaction was, "What?" Because for me, I wanted to live. When I was sick, I wanted to live. I wanted to walk my daughter down the aisle, and I did. And I've got a granddaughter. I've got a second one on the way. I would have missed all of that, and there was no way it was gonna kill me. I mean, it was like 3 years, no, I want, give me 50, thank you very much.
mhm,
But I was talking to her, and I found out her life, in the next 90 minutes, we talked. We had a long conversation because I wanted to know why a 44-year-old woman was saying she's done in 3 years, and she said, "I just wanna travel, and there's a couple places I wanna see before I go." And I was like, w my mind was going crazy, but I just asked questions. I said, "So tell me what's going on, like, what's going on in your life?" And her marriage isn't good. She's stuck in a place where she's not healthy now. She's not she doesn't see
mm,
this this life, ahead. And I think that's another thing that's really important because one thing I found was I was in that work, work, work mode, which I didn't have a good life. And now my life is spectacular. I feel like I'm 63 years old, just about to turn 64. I feel like a little kid. I was telling somebody the other day, I have the mind and the curiosity of an 8-year-old. Sometimes I act like an 8-year-old because I feel this newborn love for life right now.
mhm,
All of these experiences and everything else, you gotta have that love of life, I think is really good, and people that have a tough life, I think they really need to change their environment. Or or when they get healthy, know that they can change their environment and develop this newfound love of life and wanna live because that's super important. But she's 44 years old, and she said, "I just want 3 more years," and then I thought to myself afterwards, "Wow, there's people who commit suicide, they don't even wanna live 1 more minute, and they're in their 20s or teens." So there's that mindset and that love of life, that wanting to live, it's also super important too,
mm,
or at least knowing that you can change your environment?
oof. Oh, that is so true. Some people find that, in the most unexpected of times, but it is really important. Actually, one of the women that I interviewed for this podcast, her revelation in her near-death experience was that she didn't want to live.
Wow.
Yeah, but she turned that around. So, I think it is like if people we just never know, but, like, sometimes we're so limited in what we can see of what's possible for us that we forget that there's so much available to us and the potentials of our bodies are so actually just our being is very unlimited in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, having that new desire to live, that wanting, that love of life, for me, it's connection with people. I mean, the most important thing that I've come in the last, several years, especially with the Mind Valley group and Joe Dispenza and breathwork classes and all the other stuff is there's really beautiful humans out there. I mean, really, really amazing people. And I think you have a condensing of those types of people in certain groups, you know? So, I love it. For me, it's just that connection with humans on the level now that I connect with humans on is really remarkable. I don't need the money. I just need enough money to travel to the places where I can go find the beautiful humans, you know? But, yeah, it's really good, I mean, and there's ways to do it. Anybody that's having a hard time right now, I know I've been there, there is a beautiful life out there. It's just focusing on that and finding it, making it your rendezvous point, making it the place where you're gonna be. That's the way you wanna go. How do you get there? Well, it's friends. I mean, when you get to be 90 years old or 100 years old, you're on your deathbed, you don't wanna be like, "I got lots of money, but I didn't have the experiences. I don't have any friends, nobody's here." Who loves you and who do you love? I think is super important, and they're out there. Good people are out there. Really beautiful humans are out there. There's lots of them. And I think finding those people is to me, that's life is amazing right now. So, it's really, really remarkable feeling reborn at 63 years old. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark. You have been such an inspiration. You're giving so much of us also hope. So, and I know that you love to connect people. So tell us how we can find out. Well, actually, just connect with you if somebody wants to have a conversation, wants to ask questions.
Yeah, the easiest way is, I don't have anything because I coach people one-on-one, but I do have a Facebook page that people can connect with me on, and I can give you the link. And is that something that you can put on a place
Yes.
on your podcast there? Okay, cool, yeah. And then if anybody wants to connect with me there, that's, just DM me through that. I mean, I talk to people all the time. Just send me a message and we'll talk. I help people if they're sick, even on autoimmune diseases too. I tell them what I did, because it all works. So, or if you just want to chat. So
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mark, so much for being on here today.
cool. Yeah, it was really nice. Thanks, Valerie.
Soar to the sky.
Thanks for tuning in to From the Ashes. If this episode sparked something in you, I want you to know your evolution matters and we're rooting for you all the way. For coaching, community, and resources to help you rise into your full potential, visit intrepidwellness.life and check out what we have to offer. If you love the episode, please leave a comment, share it with a friend, or tag me on Instagram at intrepidwellness.val because I'd love to hear what resonated for you. Until next time, keep rising.